Commander Zixatheta floated in the observation deck of Monitoring Station 7. His forearms moved across different control panels while his compound eyes watched the screens. For 300 years, his family had served the Galactic Council. They watched this boring section of space where nothing ever happened. Today was different. "Commander, we have something strange," said his assistant, a small creature named Pip. Its feathers changed from blue to yellow, showing worry. "The gravity sensors are going crazy." Six Theta moved closer to the main screen. The readings made no sense. Something big was coming, but it wasn't using any hyperspace lanes the Council knew about. It wasn't using jump gates. It was doing something impossible, bending space itself. "Send a message to the Council," Six Theta ordered. His voice stayed calm, but inside he felt nervous. "Tell them we might have a first contact situation." 20 light-years away, the Galactic Council received the message. The Council controlled 10,000 star systems and knew about every advanced species in the galaxy. They had rules for everything, including meeting new species. The Council always made sure new species understood their place. At the bottom. Admiral Korthax of the Zorvani hegemony laughed when he heard about the contact. The Zorvani were warriors with thick gray skin and horns that showed their rank. "Another primitive species to add to our list. Send a small fleet. 20 ships should be enough to scare them into submission." But Council President Thylex wasn't sure. The ancient creature's tentacles moved slowly, showing deep thought. "The readings are unusual. Send 50 ships, and I will go myself." Back at the monitoring station, Zixatheta watched his screens flash red. The gravitational waves were getting stronger. Space itself seemed to scream. Then suddenly everything stopped. Where empty space had been a moment before, a ship appeared. Zixatheta had seen many ships in his long life. Elegant Council cruisers, massive Zorvani battleships, swift Valkyrie hunters. But this was something else entirely. The ship was 15 kilometers long. That was 3 times bigger than anything the Council had ever built. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapons covered every surface, things that looked like guns but different from anything in the Council's database. Strange symbols were painted on the side. UN's Prometheus. "Commander," Pip whispered, its feathers now completely white with fear. "The power readings, they're impossible. That ship is generating more energy than a small star." The Council fleet arrived within hours. 50 of the galaxy's most powerful warships arranged themselves in the traditional intimidation pattern. Admiral Korthax stood on his command bridge, all 4 of his horns polished and sharp. "Open communications. Let's see what these primitives have to say." But the first message didn't come from the Council. It came from the unknown ship. "Greetings," the message began. It was broadcast in 47 different galactic languages at the same time. The voice sounded strange, not mechanical, but not quite biological either. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations ship Prometheus, representing humanity and the planet Earth. We come in peace and seek friendship with all species." President Thylex was shocked. No new species had ever learned galactic languages before first contact. It usually took years of teaching before primitives could communicate properly. "How do they know our languages?" asked a Council member. "More importantly," said Admiral Korthax, "why aren't they afraid? They face 50 warships with 1. They should be begging for mercy." On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Sarah Chen stood with her hands behind her back. She was small for a human, only 5.5 feet tall, with short black hair and brown eyes that missed nothing. Around her, 30 crew members worked at various stations. The bridge was efficient, not fancy. Everything had a purpose. "Captain," said her weapons officer, Lieutenant Martinez, "the alien fleet is moving into attack formation." Chen nodded. "As expected. They're following Pattern 7 from the intercept communications we've been monitoring." "XO, what's your assessment?" Commander James Wright, a tall man with dark skin and gray temples, studied his display. 50 ships, various classes. Energy weapons primarily. Some missile systems. Shields are frequency-based. About 200 years behind our estimates. "They're trying to intimidate us, ma'am." "Let them try," Chen said with a small smile. "Continue broadcasting friendship messages. Monitor all frequencies. I want to know everything about them. Ship positions, shield frequencies, weapon charge rates." "Athena, are you recording?" The ship's AI responded immediately. "Yes, Captain. All data is being analyzed. Preliminary assessment. The alien fleet poses minimal threat to Prometheus. In the Council fleet, confusion was growing. The human ship hadn't moved. It hadn't raised shields that they could detect. It just sat there broadcasting messages of peace while facing enough firepower to destroy a moon. They're either very brave or very stupid, Admiral Korthax growled. Fire a warning shot. Low power, just enough to scare them. A bright green plasma bolt shot from the Zorvani flagship. It streaked through space toward the Prometheus, designed to explode just close enough to rattle the hull. On the Prometheus bridge, alarms didn't even sound. Point defense system activated, reported the tactical officer calmly. A section of the Prometheus's hull seemed to shimmer. Suddenly, space in front of the plasma bolt twisted. The bolt seemed to slow down, then stop, then simply disappeared. It hadn't been destroyed or deflected. It had been erased. The Council fleet went silent. What was that? Someone whispered over the communications. President Thylex's translator struggled with the concept. They used gravity as a weapon, but that's impossible. The power requirements alone. Admiral Korthax was angry now. His pride was hurt. All ships prepare for... He never finished the sentence. The Prometheus had finally responded. A single metal rod no bigger than a lamppost shot from the human ship. It moved so fast that the Council's sensors could barely track it. 30% of light speed. It punched through the first Zorvani ship's shields like they were made of paper, then the second ship's shields, then the third. The rod stopped just 3 meters from Admiral Korthax's bridge window. It hung there in space, spinning slowly. A simple tungsten rod compressed to impossible density, fired with enough kinetic energy to crack a small moon. And the humans had stopped it exactly where they wanted it to stop. Message received, Captain Chen's voice said over the communications. She sounded almost apologetic. We don't want to fight, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. That was a warning shot. We have 12,000 similar projectiles ready to fire. Your shields cannot stop them. Please, can we talk instead? The Council fleet was frozen. In their entire history, they had never seen weapons like this. The Council had abandoned kinetic weapons thousands of years ago as primitive, but the humans had somehow made them into something terrifying. President Thylex finally spoke. We need to discuss this. Your ship, your weapons, they don't match any technology we know. I understand, Chen replied. We're happy to wait. And President Thylex, we've been listening to your communications for 50 years. We know your protocols. We came here specifically to meet you. Humanity wants to join the galactic community, but we want to join as equals, not as subjects. The words hung in space like the tungsten rod. 50 years. The humans had been listening for 50 years. They had learned the languages, studied the Council, and built this impossible ship. Commander Zix Theta, still watching from his monitoring station, made a note in his report. He wrote slowly, carefully, because he knew this moment would be remembered forever. First contact with species designate humanity achieved. Classification unknown. Threat level extreme. Recommended action negotiate. Do not engage in hostilities. Repeat, do not engage. As he sent the report, he couldn't stop staring at the Prometheus. It hung in space like a sleeping giant, peaceful but ready. The humans had announced themselves to the galaxy not with weakness or aggression, but with something far more disturbing. They had come prepared. Admiral Korthax stood in the war room of Battle Station Prime. His 4 horns scraped the ceiling as he paced back and forth. Around the massive table, the galaxy's greatest military minds had gathered. They had been arguing for 6 hours. This is unacceptable. Korthax slammed his fist on the table. The metal bent under his strength. One ship. One primitive ship has made fools of us all. We are the Galactic Council. We control 10,000 systems. General Vrax of the Kalari Federation spoke up. The insect-like being's wings buzzed with irritation. Perhaps we should actually talk to them as they requested. They seem reasonable. Reasonable? Korthax roared. They pointed weapons at us. They showed no respect for our authority. President Thylex floated in a tank of liquid at the head of the table. The ancient being's tentacles moved slowly, showing deep thought. They also stopped their attack when they could have destroyed our ships. That shows control, intelligence. It shows arrogance, Korthax countered. They think they're better than us. We need to show them their place. The debate continued while the Prometheus waited patiently in space. On the human ship, Captain Chen was having her own meeting. They're scared, said Dr. Lisa Park, the ship's xenopsychologist. She was a small woman with bright eyes that missed nothing. Look at their formation. They keep shifting positions, trying to cover each other. They don't know what to make of us. Commander Wright nodded. Athena's been analyzing their communications. They're split. Some want to attack, others want to negotiate. What's your recommendation, Exo? Chen asked. We stick to the plan, Captain. We came here to make friends, not enemies, but we need to be ready for anything. Chen turned to her chief engineer, an older man named Oliver Thompson. How are our systems? All green, Captain. The Alcubierre drive needs 12 hours to recharge for another jump, but everything else is ready. The gravity manipulators worked perfectly against their plasma bolt, and the nanobots, ready to deploy if needed. They can eat through their hull material in about 30 seconds based on our scans. Chen nodded but frowned. I hope we don't need them. Violence should be our last option. Back in the council war room, Admiral Korthax had won the argument. His plan was simple, a massive show of force to make the humans submit. 150 warships would surround the Prometheus. They would demand surrender, and if they refuse, President Thylex asked, then we disable their ship and take it. Their technology will make the council unstoppable. The president's tentacles turned dark purple, a sign of worry. Admiral, something about this feels wrong. They knew we were watching Earth. They came prepared. What else do they know? But Korthax wasn't listening. His pride had been wounded and he wanted revenge. 3 days later, the council's grand fleet assembled. It was the largest gathering of warships in 500 years. News of the human ship had spread across the galaxy, and everyone wanted to see what would happen. On monitoring stations across 3 sectors, billions of aliens watched their screens. The Prometheus looked tiny compared to the fleet surrounding it. David against Goliath, except no one believed David could win this time. Admiral Korthax opened a channel to the Prometheus. Human vessel, you are surrounded. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Your technology will be confiscated, and your crew will be detained for questioning. You have 1 minute to comply. On the Prometheus bridge, Captain Chen sighed. She looked tired. For 3 days she had tried to communicate peacefully. She had shared information about Earth, about humanity's desire to explore and make friends. The council had ignored every message. Captain, Lieutenant Martinez said quietly. Weapons are armed and ready. I know, Chen replied. She activated the communication system. Admiral Korthax, this is Captain Chen. We don't want to fight. Please, let's talk about this. We have so much to offer each other. 50 seconds was Korthax's only reply. Chen turned to her crew. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for combat. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. We didn't come to conquer, we came to protect. Sometimes protection means showing strength. She opened a private channel to Earth. The quantum communicator could send messages instantly across any distance. Admiral Johnson, this is Chen. First contact has failed. The council is hostile, requesting permission to demonstrate human capabilities. The reply came immediately. Permission granted, Captain. Show them who we are. But Chen, minimum casualties. We're not monsters. Understood, sir. 30 seconds, Korthax announced. Chen stood up straighter. All stations prepare for demonstration alpha. Let's show them what humanity can do. 20 seconds. The Prometheus began to change. Panels on its hull shifted, revealing weapons that had been hidden. The ship seemed to grow larger, darker, more menacing. Energy readings spiked to impossible levels. 10 seconds. Launch drones, Chen ordered calmly. From the Prometheus's hull, 10,000 small objects emerged. Each was no bigger than a basketball, but they moved with perfect coordination. They spread out in a sphere around the human ship, creating a shield of moving metal. 5 seconds. Activate Nova Shield. The space around the Prometheus began to shimmer. It was like looking at the ship through water. Reality itself seemed to bend around the vessel. Time's up, Korthax declared. All ships, disable that vessel. The council fleet fired as one. Thousands of plasma bolts, laser beams, and missiles streaked toward the Prometheus. It should have been instantly destroyed. Instead, something impossible happened. The attacks hit the Nova Shield and simply passed through. The Prometheus wasn't there anymore, not exactly. It existed slightly outside normal space, untouchable but still present. The weapons passed harmlessly through where the ship appeared to be, but the drones were very much in normal space. They moved like a swarm of angry bees, intercepting missiles and absorbing energy beams. When a drone was destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. They weren't multiplying, they were just moving so fast it looked that way. Return fire, Chen ordered. Disabling shots only. The Prometheus's railgun spoke. Hundreds of tungsten rods, each the size of a pencil, shot out at 20% light speed. They were aimed with impossible precision. Each rod hit exactly where it was meant to. Weapons arrays, engine systems, shield generators. In 10 seconds, 50 council ships were disabled. Not destroyed, but unable to fight. Their crews were unharmed, but their ships were dead in space. Admiral Korthax watched in horror as his grand fleet was picked apart. The human ship wasn't even trying to destroy them. It was like watching an adult carefully disarm children without hurting them. Focus fire on Sector 7, he ordered. Overwhelm their defenses. But the Prometheus's AI Athena was already adapting. She predicted their attack patterns with 97% accuracy. The drones moved before the council ships fired, already in position to intercept. Captain, Athena reported, the enemy fleet is attempting strategy 16B from their tactical manual. Recommend response pattern Omega. Execute, Chen ordered. The drones suddenly changed formation. They formed shapes in space, mathematical patterns that hurt to look at. The patterns interfered with the Council's targeting computers, making it impossible to lock on. Then the Prometheus did something that made every alien watching gasp. It split apart, not broke, deliberately separated. The 15-kilometer ship divided into 5 3-kilometer sections, each fully functional. They moved independently, attacking from multiple angles at once. How is that possible? General Vrax buzzed in panic. Their power source. It should have... They have 5 power sources, the science officer reported, voice shaking. Each section is a complete ship. They've been hiding their true capabilities. Admiral Korthax's flagship shuddered as a tungsten rod destroyed his main weapon. Another rod took out his engines. Within seconds, his mighty battleship was dead in space. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. When it ended, all 150 council ships were disabled. Not a single alien had died, though many were terrified. The 5 sections of the Prometheus smoothly rejoined, becoming one ship again. Captain Chen opened a channel to the defeated fleet. Her voice was calm, almost sad. We could have destroyed you all. We didn't. We don't want to be your enemies. We want to be your friends. But friendship requires respect from both sides. She paused, letting her words sink in. Your ships will regain power in 6 hours. The damage is all repairable. We suggest you use that time to think about what kind of relationship you want with humanity. President Thylex, whose ship had been carefully spared from the attack, finally spoke. Captain Chen, I apologize for our aggression. May we start over? Of course, Chen replied warmly. That's all we wanted. Permission to come aboard your ship? I think it's time we met face to face. As the president agreed, Admiral Korthax sat in his dark bridge, staring at nothing. His tactical officer approached nervously. Sir, should we analyze their weapons? Learn how they did this? Korthax laughed bitterly. You don't understand, do you? They let us live. They could have killed us all in seconds, and they let us live. And the worst part? This is just one ship. They said they have 12. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. A new species had arrived. They called themselves humans. The Council had chosen the neutral zone for the demonstration. It was a dead system. 3 broken planets orbiting a dying star. No life existed here. It was the perfect place to show destructive power without hurting anyone. 300 ships had come to watch. Not just military vessels, but science ships, diplomatic cruisers, and media broadcasters from across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see what the humans could really do. President Thylex floated in his command chair, watching the Prometheus drift slowly into position. The human ship looked almost peaceful, its dark hull reflecting the orange light of the dying star. Are you sure this is wise? Asked Ambassador Rixnall, a bird-like creature with brilliant blue feathers. What if this display makes them seem too dangerous? They're already dangerous, Thylex replied. At least this way we understand what we're dealing with. On the Prometheus, Captain Chen stood before a mixed group of alien dignitaries. They had been invited aboard for the demonstration to show that humans had nothing to hide. The aliens looked nervous, especially when they walked past human crew members. Humans were smaller than most council species. They had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons, but something about them made the other species nervous. Maybe it was their eyes. Forward-facing like predators, but filled with curiosity instead of hunger. "Thank you all for coming," Chen said, her voice translated perfectly by the ship's systems. "Before we begin, I want to explain something about humanity. We don't show you these weapons to threaten you. We show them because honesty is important to us." General Vrax buzzed his wings nervously. "Your weapons are unlike anything we've seen." "Where did such technology come from?" Chen smiled sadly. "War, constant, endless war. Humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. We got very good at it. But 50 years ago, when we learned we weren't alone, everything changed. We realized we had a choice. Use our knowledge of war to conquer or use it to protect." "And you chose protection?" Thylex asked. "We chose survival," Chen corrected. "For everyone. The galaxy is big and dangerous. We've been listening to your communications. You've had peace for so long you've forgotten how to fight. But there are threats out there. Things worse than humans." She led them to the observation deck. The wall was transparent aluminum, showing the dead system outside. "Athena, begin demonstration 1. The AI's voice filled the room. "Launching drone swarm." From the Prometheus, 10,000 drones emerged. But this time they didn't form defensive patterns. They danced. The drones moved in perfect synchronization, creating shapes in space. First, a model of the Council's homeworld, perfect in every detail. Then it shifted, becoming Earth. Then it became something else, a map of the entire galaxy with every star in its proper place. "Each drone," Chen explained, "has an AI brain linked to all the others. They think as one but can act independently. In combat, they can adapt to any strategy instantly." "How do you control them?" a scientist asked. "We don't," Chen said. "We give them objectives and they figure out how to achieve them. Watch." She spoke to the air. Drones disabled a third planet's moon, non-destructive. The swarm moved like water. They flowed across space to the dead system's third planet, which had a small moon. The drones surrounded it, then began to glow. Beams of energy connected them, forming a net around the moon. The moon stopped rotating. "They've created a stasis field," the science officer gasped. That's theoretically impossible." "Nothing is impossible," Chen said. "Just expensive. The power requirement for that field could run a city for a year. But we have power to spare." She nodded to Athena. "Release and recall." The drones released the moon and flowed back to the ship, disappearing into hidden ports. "Demonstration 2, Chen announced. The Nova Shield. A council ship had volunteered to fire at the Prometheus. It was an older vessel, but its weapons were still powerful. The captain fired everything: lasers, plasma, kinetic rounds. The Prometheus shimmered and the attacks passed through empty space. "We're not actually moving," Chen explained. "We're shifting our existence slightly outside normal space-time. The shield can maintain for 48 hours at current power levels." "But you can't attack while shielded?" Korthax asked. The Admiral had been invited despite the earlier conflict. "Actually, we can," Chen said. Athena, demonstration 3. While still shielded, the Prometheus fired a single missile. It appeared to materialize from nowhere, already in flight. It struck a designated asteroid, turning it to dust. "We can shift weapons in and out of phase," Chen explained. "Defense and offense at the same time." The aliens were silent. This technology was centuries ahead of anything they had. "May I ask?" President Thylex said carefully. "How did humanity develop such advanced technology so quickly? Our records show you only achieved spaceflight 300 years ago." Chen led them to a secure room. Inside was a display case containing a piece of strange metal. 307 years ago, human explorers found something buried on Mars, our neighbor planet. A crashed ship, very old, older than your council. We reverse-engineered what we could, but more importantly, we learned something. She touched the case gently. We weren't alone, and if one ship could crash on Mars, others could come to Earth. So we prepared. "You built weapons," Korthax said. "We built defenses," Chen corrected. "Every human child learns about the Mars discovery. We call it the wake-up call. It united our species like nothing else could. No more wars between nations. We had to be ready for whatever was out there." She led them back to the observation deck. "This brings us to demonstration 4, our primary weapon. I need you all to understand. We've never used this at full power. We hope we never have to. Outside, a dead planet floated in space. It was roughly Earth-sized, a ball of rock with no atmosphere. Athena charged the stellar lance, 5% power. The Prometheus began to change. Its hull shifted, revealing a weapon that ran the entire length of the ship. Energy readings throughout the Council fleet spiked to critical levels. "Captain," one alien said nervously, "our ships are detecting an antimatter reaction." "Partially correct," Chen said. "The lance creates a focused beam of directed antimatter particles, contained within a magnetic field and accelerated to near light speed. But that's just the carrier wave." The weapon fired. A beam of pure white light so bright that the observation deck's windows automatically darkened struck the planet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the planet cracked, not exploded. Cracked, like an egg. Pieces the size of continents drifted apart. The planet's core exposed to space cooled from white to red to black in seconds. 5%, Chen said quietly. At full power, the beam would destabilize a star. The room was completely silent. Several aliens had changed colors, their species' sign of extreme fear. "You could destroy solar systems," Thylex said, his voice barely a whisper. "Yes," Chen agreed. "We could, but we won't. Humans have a saying, with great power comes great responsibility. We have the power. Now we must prove we have the responsibility." She turned to face them all. "There's one more demonstration, the one that matters most." On her signal, the Prometheus launched a small probe. It flew to the remnants of the destroyed planet and began to work. Tiny robots emerged from it, spreading across the floating rocks. "Watch," Chen said. The robots began to build. Using the planet's material, they constructed something. Within minutes, a structure took shape. Then another. And another. "Those are habitats," the science officer said, amazed. "Fully functional living spaces. We can destroy," Chen said. "But we prefer to create. Those same robots that could eat through your ships? They can also build hospitals, schools, homes. The same power that runs our weapons can provide energy for entire civilizations." She touched a control, and the main screen showed Earth. Blue and green, alive and beautiful. Our home nearly died once. We poisoned our air, our water. We fought wars that killed millions. But we learned. We changed. And when we found that ship on Mars, we made a promise. Never again. Not to us, not to anyone. "What do you want from us?" President Thylex asked. "Partnership," Chen said simply. "The galaxy is vast. There are wonders to discover, mysteries to solve. We want to explore with you, learn from you, and yes, protect you if needed. We've monitored signals from beyond your borders. There are things out there that make humans look peaceful." She brought up a star map. At the edges in the unmapped regions, red markers blinked ominously. The Vorthan Swarm, the Dark Singers, the Machine Consciousness. They're all out there waiting. The Council has had peace for so long because you haven't met them yet. But you will. And when that day comes, you'll need warriors. And humans are warriors? Korthax asked. "No," Chen shook her head. "We're soldiers. There's a difference. Warriors fight for glory, for conquest. Soldiers fight to protect what they love. And strange as it might sound after watching you for 50 years, we've come to love this galaxy. All of it. Even the parts that shot at us." She smiled at Korthax, who looked away, embarrassed. President Thylex floated forward. "Captain Chen, I need to ask one more question. You said this is one of 12 Titan-class ships. Where are the others?" Chen's expression grew serious. "Stationed at key points around human space, watching, waiting, making sure nothing threatens Earth while we're here talking to you." Captain Chen stood at the entrance to the Prometheus's diplomatic hall. She had never hosted so many aliens at once. Representatives from every major council species had come aboard. They walked through the human ship with wonder and fear, taking in every detail. The hall itself was simple but impressive. One wall showed Earth in real time, the blue marble floating in space. The other walls displayed art from human history, everything from cave paintings to digital sculptures. It was meant to show humanity's journey. President Thylex floated near a painting called Starry Night by someone named Van Gogh. "This was made before you had spaceflight?" "Hundreds of years before," Chen confirmed. "Humans have always looked at the stars and wondered. Now we finally get to visit them." Admiral Korthax stood before a display of human weapons throughout history, from stone spears to nuclear weapons to the stellar lance. "Your species has done nothing but perfect warfare," he said. "No. Chen corrected gently. We've done everything, but we got really good at war. There's a difference. Let me show you something else. She led them to another display. It showed human medical advances, agricultural developments, and communication breakthroughs. Every war pushed us to innovate. Battlefield medicine became hospitals. Military communications became the internet. Weapons research gave us nuclear power. We're a paradox. Our greatest darkness led to our brightest lights. How many wars has your species fought? Asked Ambassador Rixnell. Dr. Park, the xenopsychologist, answered. We stopped counting after 15,000. That's just the recorded ones. Humans have been fighting since before we had writing. The aliens exchanged worried looks. The Galactic Council had fought perhaps a dozen major wars in its entire 10,000-year history. Please sit. Chen invited them to a large round table. Or float or perch, whatever's comfortable. We need to talk about why we're really here. Once everyone was settled, Chen activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy, but not as the Council knew it. There were areas marked in different colors. Green for Council space, blue for Earth, and red for unknown threats. Athena, show them what we've detected. The AI's calm voice filled the room. Over the past 50 years, human monitoring stations have detected 17 different potentially hostile civilizations beyond Council borders. The map zoomed in on a red section. Strange ships appeared, organic-looking things that pulsed like living creatures. The Vorthan swarm, Chen said. Bioships that consume entire planets for resources. They're heading this way. At their current speed, they'll reach Council space in 18 months. Impossible, General Vrax buzzed. Our sensors would have detected. Your sensors look for what you expect, Athena interrupted. Conventional drives, energy signatures you recognize. The swarm uses biological propulsion. You wouldn't notice them until they were already here. Chen changed the display. Another red zone appeared. The machine consciousness. AIs that achieved sentience and decided organic life was inefficient. They've destroyed 14 systems that we've detected. More red zones appeared. Each one represented a threat the Council had never imagined. How do you know all this? President Thylex demanded. Chen smiled sadly. Because we're paranoid. Humans assume the worst and prepare for it. When we found that ship on Mars, our first thought wasn't we're not alone. It was what killed this ship and is it coming for us? She stood and walked to a sealed door. I'm going to show you something now. Only 12 humans have ever seen this. Athena opened the archive. The door slid open, revealing a vast chamber. Inside were dozens of artifacts, pieces of alien technology, all ancient, all damaged. Mars wasn't the only place we found things, Chen explained. Once we started looking, we found crashed ships, abandoned probes, and dead satellites all through our solar system. All from different species, all destroyed by something. She picked up a twisted piece of metal. This one is 40,000 years old. The species that built it had technology beyond even what we have now, but something destroyed them. You're saying the galaxy is full of dead civilizations? Thylex asked. I'm saying the galaxy is dangerous and you've been lucky, Chen replied. Your council exists in a quiet corner of space. But the quiet is ending. Those threats I showed you? They're all moving, expanding, looking for resources. Commander Wright joined them carrying a data pad. Captain, should I show them the intercepts? Chen nodded. Wright activated another display. Strange sounds filled the room. Electronic screams, organic roars, mechanical grinding. These are communications we've intercepted from the red zones, Wright explained. We can't translate most of them, but we understand the intent. They're military signals, battle commands, victory announcements. One sound made everyone freeze. It was beautiful and terrible at once, like singing and screaming combined. The Dark Singers, Chen said quietly. They use sonic weapons that can shatter planets. We've seen the aftermath. Why are you telling us this? Korthax asked. If these threats are real, why reveal them? You could have conquered us while we were unprepared. Because that's not who we are, Chen said firmly. Humans have a saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. These threats are everyone's enemy. We can't face them alone, and honestly, you can't face them at all without help. She returned to the table. Here's what you don't understand about humanity. We've been preparing for alien invasion since we discovered fiction. Every human grows up with stories about alien attacks. We've imagined every possible scenario, and we've prepared for all of them. You thought we would invade? Thylex sounded offended. We hoped you wouldn't, Chen said. But hope isn't a strategy, so we prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. and now we're offering you the benefit of our paranoia. Dr. Park added, humans have a unique trait among the species we've observed. We can imagine terrible things and prepare for them without becoming terrible ourselves. We call it defensive pessimism. Chen activated another display. This one showed human colonies spreading across several systems. We didn't just build warships. We built arc ships too. Generation ships carrying complete genetic samples of Earth's biosphere. If Earth falls, humanity and our entire ecosystem will survive elsewhere. You're that afraid of extinction? Rixnall asked. We're that determined to prevent it, Chen corrected. For everyone, not just us. She pulled up one final display. It showed the 12 Titan-class warships, but there was something different about them. Each Titan carries more than weapons, Chen explained. They have seed vaults with genetic samples from over 10 million species. Complete libraries of all human knowledge, manufacturing capabilities to rebuild civilization from nothing. They're not just warships, they're lifeboats for our entire species. And you want to build more? Thylex guessed. We want to build them with you, Chen said, combining our technology with your knowledge. Your species have abilities we don't. The Velkari's biological engineering, the Zorvani's shield technology, the Kalari's hive mind coordination. Together we could build defenses that no threat could overcome. She paused, letting them absorb this. But more than that, we want to learn from you. You've had peace for thousands of years. You know how to cooperate, how to build lasting alliances. We know how to fight. You know how to live. Maybe together we can do both. Admiral Korthax stood up. You're asking us to militarize. To become like you? No, Chen said firmly. We're asking you to let us be your shield while you remain who you are. The galaxy needs your wisdom, your culture, your peace, but it also needs someone willing to stand at the gates and fight the darkness. And humans volunteer for that role? Thylex asked. We don't just volunteer, Chen said. We've been training for it our entire existence. Every human soldier takes an oath. Different words in different languages, but the same meaning. I stand between my loved ones and danger. I will not let harm pass while I still draw breath. She gestured to the crew visible through the transparent walls. Humans of every color and creed working together. Look at them. My species spent most of its history fighting over skin color, religion, and borders. But when we realized we weren't alone, all of that became trivial. We united against the unknown. You united in fear, Korthax observed. We united in purpose, Chen corrected. There's a difference, Athena's voice interrupted. Captain, priority message from Earth. Admiral Johnson needs to speak with you immediately. Put him through, Chen ordered. Admiral Johnson appeared as a hologram. He was an older man with silver hair and hard eyes. Captain, our deep space monitors have detected movement in Sector 7. The Vorthan swarm has accelerated. New arrival estimate is 6 months. The aliens in the room went still. 6 months? Chen repeated. Are you certain? Confirmed by 3 separate sources. They've detected the Council's technology emissions. They're coming to feed. Chen turned to the Council representatives. Well, it seems the universe has made the choice for us. You have 6 months to decide. Accept our help or face the swarm alone. How many ships in the swarm? Thylex asked, his color changing to show fear. Admiral Johnson answered. At last count, 40 million bioships, each one capable of consuming a planet's biosphere in days. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. 40 million, Korthax whispered. The entire Council fleet is only 50,000 ships. The Vorthan swarm arrived like a plague of locusts made from nightmares and metal. They poured through the jump point into Council space, 40 million bioships that moved like a single organism. Each ship was different, grown rather than built, with hulls that pulsed like living flesh and weapons that seemed to grow from their skin. Admiral Korthax stood on the bridge of his new flagship, watching the tactical display with growing horror. There are so many, he whispered. Beside him, Captain Chen remained calm. She had transferred to the Council command ship 3 days ago, bringing a small team of human advisors. Numbers don't win wars, she said. Strategy does. Strategy? Korthax laughed bitterly. What strategy can stand against that? Chen touched her communicator. All Titan vessels, this is Chen. Begin Operation Thermopylae. 3 Titan-class warships materialized from their cloaked positions. The UNS Prometheus, UNS Athena, and UNS Mars formed a triangle formation at the jump point. Compared to the swarm, they looked like toys. President Thylex's voice came over the comm from the Council's emergency bunker. 3 ships against 40 million?
This is suicide!
No, Chen said. This is human warfare, watch. The Titans opened fire, not with the random shooting the Council expected, but with precise coordinated strikes. Each tungsten rod they fired was aimed at specific bioships, the ones that seemed to coordinate the others. Athena, analysis complete, the AI announced. The swarm operates on a distributed hive mind. 17 command nodes identified and targeted. The rods struck home. 17 bioships exploded, and suddenly, millions of swarm vessels stopped moving in coordination. They began to bump into each other, confused without their leaders. Now, Chen ordered. Deploy the garden. From the Prometheus, a cloud of something was released. It looked like glittering dust spreading through space toward the swarm. What is that? General Vrax asked. Nanobots, Chen explained, but not for destroying. These are programmed to feed on the specific biological material the swarm ships are made of. They'll eat the ships and reproduce, spreading through the entire fleet. The glittering cloud reached the first bioships. Within seconds, the vessels began to dissolve. The nanobots ate through their organic hulls like acid, then split into more nanobots that attacked other ships. But the swarm was learning. The bioships began to spray something, a biological acid that destroyed the nanobots on contact. They were adapting just as Chen had warned. They're countering the nanobots, Korthax said, panic in his voice. Of course they are, Chen said calmly. Athena, implement stage 2. The 3 Titans suddenly split apart, each becoming 5 smaller vessels. Now 15 human ships faced the swarm. They spread out, forming a net across the jump point. Gravity mines activated, Athena announced. Space itself began to twist. The jump point started to collapse, not completely, but enough to make it smaller. The swarm ships trying to pour through were suddenly compressed, crushed by the warping space. Millions of bioships were destroyed in seconds, but the swarm adapted again. They began to fire some kind of biological energy that stabilized the jump point, forcing it back open. They're too adaptable, Thylex said over the comm. Every strategy you use, they counter it. Yes, Chen agreed. That's why we're not trying to win with one strategy. We're making them adapt until they can't anymore. Athena, stage 3. The 15 human ship sections reformed, but not into 3 Titans. They became one massive vessel, 45 kilometers long. The combined ship was something that had never been seen before. What is that? Someone gasped. Prometheus, Athena, and Mars were designed to combine, Chen explained. Together they become the UNS Terra, Earth's final guardian. The Terra's weapons were beyond anything the Council had imagined. It fired beams of compressed gravity that created temporary black holes. Bioships were pulled in and crushed to nothing. It launched missiles that exploded into miniature suns, burning through the organic fleet. But the swarm kept coming. For every million destroyed, another million appeared. They began to surround the Terra, trying to overwhelm it with pure numbers. Captain Chen, Admiral Johnson's voice came through from Earth. The other 9 Titans are ready to jump in. Not yet, Chen said. We need to thin them more. Deploy the singers. From the Terra, strange devices were launched. They looked like tuning forks the size of buildings. When they activated, they sang. The sound was beyond hearing, but everyone felt it. It was the resonant frequency of the bioship's organic material. The swarm vessels began to vibrate, then shake, then shatter like glass. The swarm screamed. It was a psychic scream that every telepath in the galaxy heard. The hive mind was in pain, but pain made them angry. The bioships began to merge, forming larger and larger creatures. Where there had been 40 million small ships, now there were 1 million massive ones. Each was the size of a moon with weapons that could crack planets. By the void, Korthax whispered. They're becoming something else. One of the moon-sized bioships fired. The beam struck the Terra's shields, and for the first time, the human vessel shuddered. Shields at 60%, Athena reported. They're learning our frequencies. Chen stood straighter. All Council ships, this is Captain Chen. I know you're scared. I know this seems impossible. But remember, humans have been fighting impossible odds our entire history, and we're still here. She opened a channel to all human vessels. All ships implement Protocol 7. It's time to show them why humans are the galaxy's warriors. From jump points throughout the system, human ships appeared. Not just the 9 remaining Titans, but hundreds of smaller vessels, frigates, destroyers, carriers. The entire human fleet had come, but more than that, they brought something else. Are those asteroids? Thylex asked. Weaponized asteroids, Chen corrected. We hollowed them out, filled them with explosives and engines. Each one is a kinetic kill vehicle moving at half-light speed. The asteroid slammed into the merged bioships. The explosions were visible from 3 systems away. Entire bioships were shattered, their organic matter spreading through space. But the swarm's hive mind was learning faster now. It began to predict the asteroids' paths, destroying them before impact. The bioships started producing some kind of spore that ate through human shields. The battle raged for hours. For every advantage the humans found, the swarm adapted. For every adaptation, the humans innovated. It was evolution at hyperspeed, warfare as a living thing. Then something changed. The swarm stopped attacking. All the bioships froze in space. What's happening? Korthax asked. Chen smiled grimly. They're thinking. The hive mind is processing everything it's learned. In about 30 seconds, they're going to come at us with everything they've figured out. This is when we find out if humanity is strong enough. She turned to face the Council fleet commanders on screen. I need you all to listen carefully. In a few seconds, I'm going to ask you to do something that goes against every instinct you have. But if you don't, we all die. What do you need? Thylex asked. I need you to retreat. All Council ships fall back to the secondary line. Let the swarm think you're running. That's cowardice. Korthax protested. That's tactics, Chen corrected. Trust me, please. Thylex made the choice. All Council ships retreat to secondary positions. The Council fleet pulled back. The swarm, seeing weakness, surged forward. All the remaining bioships charged at once, heading for the Council's core worlds. Now, Chen said quietly, Athena, activate the Dead Man Protocol. Captain, Athena said, that will require... I know what it requires. Do it. The Terra began to glow. Its power core was overloading, building to critical mass. Chen, what are you doing? Admiral Johnson demanded from Earth. What humans do best, Chen replied. We're being the shield. All human ships form defensive line around the Council fleet. Prepare for Dead Man Protocol. Every human ship began to glow. They were all overloading their cores. You're going to self-destruct, Thylex gasped. All of you? If necessary, Chen said. But I'm hoping it won't be. You see, the swarm has learned everything about our weapons, our tactics, our technology, but they haven't learned about human psychology. She opened a channel to the swarm. Somehow she knew they would understand. Attention, Vorthan Swarm. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the human species. You have learned much about us, but you missed the most important thing. Humans don't fight to win. We fight to protect, and we will gladly die to save others. The Terra's glow became blinding. You have 2 choices. Retreat now and never return to this galaxy, or die with us. Every human ship is prepared to detonate. The combined explosion will sterilize this entire sector. You might survive, but you'll be so weakened that the Council fleet will finish you. Choose. The swarm was silent. Billions of minds thinking as one, calculating, analyzing. Then something unprecedented happened. The swarm sent a message. Not in words, but in images. It showed the bioships retreating, leaving the galaxy, seeking food elsewhere. But there was a condition. The images showed the swarm returning if humanity ever left the galaxy. This was their feeding ground, but they would abandon it as long as humans stood guard. Terms accepted, Chen said. Leave now. The swarm began to retreat. 40 million bioships turned and flowed back through the jump point. Within an hour they were gone. The human ships powered down their cores.